So Democrats are being called out by their own party for their behavior during President Trump's address to Congress.
That is how you save democracy, by quietly dissenting or bidding on an antique tea set. It was hard to tell what was going on.
I don't know who thought up the bingo signs, but they should be fired.
Michael, this is an indictment, in my opinion, on the Democratic leadership.
What we saw, the theatrics tonight in the chamber, are not being well received.
I will say, I think there were times when they should have risen. I think what Al Green did was despicable.
And even Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman expressed his disappointment, posting this on social media. It only makes Trump look more presidential and restrained. We're becoming the metaphorical car alarms that nobody pays attention to, and it may not be the winning message.
Joining us right now is the host of Piers Morgan Uncensored. He puts his name in every show he's on. Piers Morgan, great. And we don't just talk about generic data.
Sound familiar?
By the way, watching you try to interview the head of world football, you couldn't even remember the name of the sport. It's football.
Oh.
Watching you do that was one of the more comical things I've witnessed. Only rivaled by what happened over here on the floor.
Right.
Piers,
I mean, it was actually very well done, Lawrence, but that was embarrassing.
I love you. I love you. We have to defend our American sport. It's called soccer.
It is football. Right?
Don't you want to defend me?
Yes, I'm defending Ryan.
It's all about America.
Don't come into our home and tell us.
Can't yell them with a smile on your face. So what do you think? What about Democrats against
What do I think?
Democrats?
Here's what I think. I think it was one. I was watching it live here in New York. I thought it was one of the most pathetic, petty, shameful things I've ever witnessed. And it went on and on and on. And, you know, back in the UK, we have Parliament. It gets very rowdy, very noisy. They all have a pop at each other. They lock horns. What you would never see is somebody like that 13-year-old boy, a brain cancer survivor, who's been through 12 surgeries, I think, who's being there, having his dream lived out on global television, and Donald Trump has facilitated that. Just get up and applaud that boy. The fact they couldn't even do that, I thought was just contemptible. I really did. And the Democrats have got to take a good, long, hard look at themselves, because the stupid signs, the not getting up for the poor families of these murdered people, the way they treated that boy, the walkouts, the silly Instagram stuff afterwards. Look at me, I didn't go in. This is the President of the United States speaking.
What's going on?
In the heart of politics. I think they've, honestly, Lawrence, they've lost the plot. The Democrats have lost the plot. They did not see this big win coming for Trump in the election. They got completely wiped. They've lost all power, and they are scrabbling to work out what they do about this. And I think the key messages that Trump keeps ramming home, that America's no longer a woke country, and that, secondly, he's the sort of pioneer of a revolution of common sense. They don't know what to do about this. I mean, on one hand, you've got them all in their pink gear, right, going on about women's rights. On the other, they won't applaud a president who wants to bring back equality and fairness to women's sport in America.
Piers, a lot of people can relate to this, though, that are Republicans or conservative, because if you support Trump, they hate you too.
Yeah.
And so this little boy, he's there. It's not about Trump at that moment. It's about this little boy, and Trump's just allowing him to be a Secret Service agent. We don't know how that child's family votes. They're from Houston.
But also that moment, Ainsley, I thought, when Trump invited him to the Oval Office with his family.
That's right.
And my little boy said, "Can I give you a hug?"
Yeah.
That is the human side of Donald Trump, which we've all seen a lot of, right? I'm really pleased we're seeing more of that this time around, because that is what he can be about. And I think the Democrats have lost their sense of humanity. I mean, they just don't know what to do. It's extraordinary to watch.
Last week, we had Macron and Starmer come visit, and then with Zelensky and the meltdown on Friday. And now there was an emergency meeting last night with European leaders. How do you view Europe being asked and told to come together and support Ukraine or other causes, build up your military, take ownership? How does that look from the inside?
Trump is 100% right about this, and he has been from the moment in his first term he went on about NATO and how the European countries were simply not paying their dues. And they weren't. And guess what? Now most of them do. But they should still be now paying more. You know, Poland, I think, has gone to 5% GDP on defence now, right? They're leading the way. Europe should be standing on its own 2 feet. If I was an American, I would be sick and tired of constantly having this assumption from Europe, that you will always be here to pick up the pieces, to pay the bills, to do all the fighting. Right? I'm very proud that the UK has fought alongside America in many conflicts. My brother was a British Army colonel, fought in Iraq and Afghanistan. So, nothing means more to me than that special relationship. But at the same time, Europe has got to start punching its way. I like the fact my new Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, and Macron, they seem to be leading this way now for Europe to step up properly. But I hope we do a deal in the end that brings, as Trump wants, peace, where the Americans are there, but you're not having to do all the heavy lifting like you normally do.
But Piers, because some of the messaging from the mainstream media and Democrats is that I don't think we look weak, but they feel like we look weak as a country. What is the perception in the UK?
Well, it's funny, because I spoke to President Trump last Friday morning, just the day after he'd seen the British Prime Minister at the White House. And I texted him, I said, I've never seen better media coverage in the UK than what I've seen this morning. Every front page lauding the return of the special relationship. Then there was the Oval Office bust-up. The next morning front page is the complete opposite, which is very, that's very Trump world, right? I think the reality is, as always, people react hysterically to everything the president does. They can't really work out what's going on. I always try and remind them. I'm known as the Trump whisperer in the UK. Well, what's he really doing? I said, why don't you just remember what he is?
Negotiation.
He's a businessman who's negotiating. I think Donald Trump genuinely wants peace. I think that he wants to bring everyone to the table, but I think he also wants Ukraine to accept that the war is where it is. This war has not moved in 8-9 months. Hundreds of thousands of people have been killed on this battlefield. It has got to stop. But he's got to do it, I think, in a way where America is strong, but also the Europeans understand this is a war happening in Europe. And you can't just go knocking on the door and say, America, sort it all out for us. Yeah. It's got to be a concerted team effort. And I think, personally, knowing how Donald Trump feels about this, I think he will get that. And in the end, we'll look back on this period as being a little bit rocky, as these things always are when you try and sort out a war. But ultimately, I think we'll get to peace and people will thank him.
We'll see if this is the one deal that Putin sticks to, because he's famous for...
Well, you know what's interesting? I found a clip, and it went viral, actually, and it was from when I interviewed Bill Clinton at CNN about 10 years ago. And he was talking about his dealings with Vladimir Putin when he was president and Putin just come into power in Russia. And he said the interesting thing was, in public, they'd have all their squabbles and everything else. But in private, if he agreed on something and shook hands with you, he always kept his word. I think Trump has that relationship with Putin. I think that they say what they say in public, but fine, and he has to play the game a bit to get Putin to the table. But I think behind the scenes, there's a lot of talking going on, and clearly Trump believes when it's him and Putin, he can trust him. That may be enough in this situation. We'll see.
See, well, I told you he was going to be a good guest. They didn't think so.
Listen, I've got all morning. I mean, they want me to come and watch you kick a football. I mean, it's like, do they even know what the sport is?
I know.
Right? I'm going to be judging it. Are you out there later?
It's so weird for a Brit to be arrogant about soccer. It's so unique. You never get that.
It's not soccer. It's football.
We know.
You took our sport. You changed the shape of the ball. You put padding and helmets on.
Now,
we made it better.
You've been a co-host before. It's time for Ainsley to talk. We got to pass over to the female anchor.
We're just taking time away from Brian's next interview.
That's right.
Why don't you just I've got all morning.
I know. Once he's on, he doesn't leave.
Right. They wrapped us like 1 minute ago. So take it out of Brian's time with his guests, not mine, please.
Nothing better than taking time out of Brian's time.
Right.
Nothing sweeter in the world.
Who booked him?
Talking.
Who booked him?
Piers, always good to see you. Thank you so much.
Lovely to see you.